The Enchanted Bridge, a tale of friendship and courage. Once upon a time, in a land far away, there was a magical forest. The trees were tall and lush, with leaves that sparkled in the sunlight. The animals who lived there were friendly and kind, and they all looked out for one another. In this forest, there was a little rabbit named Remy. He had soft, brown fur and big, curious eyes. Remy loved to explore the forest and play with his friends, but there was one thing that he wanted more than anything: to see the most beautiful flower in the world. Remy had heard stories from his friends about a flower that was so rare and so beautiful that it could only be found in the deepest part of the forest. He longed to see it for himself, and so one day he set out on an adventure to find it. As Remy hopped along the forest floor, he felt a flutter in his stomach. He had never been this deep in the forest before, and he didn't know what he might find. But he was determined to keep going, and so he hopped and hopped until he came to a clearing. There, in the center of the clearing, was the most beautiful flower that Remy had ever seen. It was the color of the sun and the petals sparkled like diamonds. Remy felt his heart swell with happiness, and he knew that he had found something truly special. As Remy admired the beautiful flower, he heard a strange sound coming from the other side of the clearing. It was a soft, tinkling sound, like water trickling over rocks. Curious, Remy hopped over to investigate. As he got closer, he saw that there was a small pond nestled among the trees. The water was crystal clear and sparkled in the sunlight. Remy had never seen this pond before, and he wondered what other secrets the forest might be hiding. He decided to take a closer look, and so he hopped down to the edge of the water. As he peered into the pond, he saw something amazing. There were fish swimming in the water. Remy had never seen fish before, and he was fascinated by their bright colors and graceful movements. Suddenly, one of the fish jumped out of the water and landed at Remy's feet. It was a beautiful golden fish with shimmering scales. "Hello there," said the fish. "What brings you to our pond?" Remy was startled by the fish's sudden appearance, but he quickly regained his composure. "I'm Remy," he said. "I'm exploring the forest and I just found this pond. I didn't know there were fish in it." The golden fish smiled. "Yes, we live here. We're very happy in our little home. Would you like to swim with us?" Remy had never swum before, but he was excited to try. He hopped into the water and felt the coolness of the pond surround him. The fish swam around him, and Remy felt like he was part of their world. As they swam, Remy saw something in the distance. It was a bridge, but not like any bridge he had ever seen before. It was made of twisted vines and shimmering crystals, and it seemed to glow in the sunlight. Remy was curious about the bridge, and he asked the golden fish if they knew anything about it. "Oh, that's the Enchanted Bridge," said one of the fish. "It leads to a magical place where all of our wishes come true." Remy's ears perked up at the mention of a magical place. He had always dreamed of going on adventures and discovering new things, and this seemed like the perfect opportunity. "Can we go there?" Remy asked eagerly. The golden fish looked at each other and nodded. "Yes, but be careful," they warned. "The Enchanted Bridge is very old and fragile. You must step lightly and be mindful of every step you take." Remy nodded and they set off towards the bridge. As they approached, Remy could feel the magic emanating from it. He took a deep breath and stepped onto the first vine. The bridge creaked and groaned beneath his weight, but he kept moving forward. He felt a sense of excitement building within him as he neared the other side. Finally, he made it to the other side of the bridge. There, in front of him, was a clearing filled with sparkling jewels and treasures beyond his wildest dreams. Remy's eyes widened as he looked around the clearing. There were jewels of every color, sparkling in the sunlight. There were piles of gold and silver, and precious stones that glittered like stars. As he was admiring the treasures, he heard a rustling in the bushes. Suddenly, a dark figure emerged, and Remy could see that it was a fox. The fox's eyes glinted greedily as he surveyed the treasures in the clearing. Without warning, he lunged forward and began to grab handfuls of jewels and gold. Remy was alarmed by the fox's behavior. He had always been taught to share and be kind to others, and he didn't like seeing someone else taking things that didn't belong to them. "Stop!" Remy shouted, as the fox continued to grab more treasures. "Those don't belong to you." The fox looked up and snarled. "Who are you to tell me what I can and can't take?" Remy stood up tall and faced the fox bravely. "I'm Remy, and I live in the magical forest. We always share and take care of each other. You can't just take things that don't belong to you." The fox hesitated for a moment, but then he lunged forward again. Remy knew he had to act fast to stop him. Remy took a deep breath and stood his ground. He knew that he couldn't take on the fox alone, but he also knew that he had something that the fox didn't, the power of friendship. He called out to his friends in the forest, hoping that they would hear him. "Help! Help! Someone is stealing from the Enchanted Bridge." Suddenly, from all corners of the forest, animals began to appear. There were squirrels, birds, rabbits, and even a family of deer. They all stood behind Remy, ready to protect the treasures of the Enchanted Bridge. The fox was surprised by the sudden appearance of so many animals, and he hesitated for a moment. But then he shook his head and lunged forward again, determined to grab as many treasures as he could. The animals stood firm and began to form a barrier between the fox and the treasures. They worked together, using their strength and their wits to outsmart the fox. Finally, the fox gave up and slunk away into the bushes. The animals cheered and hugged each other, happy that they had worked together to protect something that was precious to them. Remy smiled and felt a sense of pride welling up inside of him. After the fox had retreated, Remy and his friends sat down in the clearing and looked at the treasures that had been saved. Remy felt a sense of satisfaction that he had helped protect the Enchanted Bridge and its treasures. As they sat, one of the golden fish swam up to them. "You have shown great courage and kindness," the fish said. "We are grateful for your protection of our treasures." Remy blushed with pride and felt a warm feeling in his heart. The golden fish continued, "We hope you have learned a valuable lesson today, that the power of friendship is stronger than greed or selfishness. Always remember to work together and help each other, and you will succeed in anything you do." Remy nodded, knowing that he had learned an important lesson. He realized that it wasn't just about protecting treasures, but it was about being kind and sharing with others. Remy and his friends spent the rest of the day in the clearing, celebrating their victory over the greedy fox. They sang songs and danced together, feeling the joy of friendship and the power of working together. As the sun began to set, Remy and his friends started to make their way back to their homes in the magical forest. They knew that they had learned something important today, and they were excited to share their experience with their families and friends. That night, as Remy lay in bed, he thought about his adventure on the Enchanted Bridge. He felt a sense of happiness and contentment, knowing that he had made a difference and learned an important lesson. As he closed his eyes, he saw a vision of the Enchanted Bridge in his mind. He saw himself walking across the bridge, surrounded by his friends and the magical creatures of the forest. He knew that this was a dream he would always cherish and remember, and he fell asleep with a smile on his face.